Well, welcome back to the When I Heard This podcast. My name is Nate Robinsoff, and I'm here with Pastor Joseph Tillman. Howdy doody, partner.
What's up, man?
Doing good?
Yeah, man, ready to do this thing.
We're going for it today.
All right.
We are going all the way to podcast land.
My favorite place.
Cool. We talked about before, what job is like for a pastor.
Sure.
But today we're talking about what regular life is like and what you deal with as be pastor.
Yes.
So that should be fun and is going to feel like therapy a little bit, but we're going to do it.
All right. I like it. I like therapy anyways. This will be good.
All right, so let's get into this stuff. First off, go to Patreon, $5. Click all the buttons around the things, like, subscribe, share, follow, download, other things. So my first question. So when you are out and about doing anything as a regular person does,
Yeah.
do you ever...
Because pastors are just not regular people.
Not regular at all. Do you ever think about or are conscious of how you are a pastor and should behave differently, whatever you think differently means?
Okay. Yeah. So you're going to leave it very ambiguous.
Yes.
Huh? All right. There's, for the most part, no, I don't think about it in relation to, all right, I better do this because I'm a pastor. That doesn't happen very often at all. The only time that it kind of dawns on me in particular is when I'm driving.
Okay.
And so because, you're driving and let's say someone cuts you off, right? And so you're blowing the horn and maybe or maybe not, you're just driving on them pretty close. And then it kind of hits me.
That you're a pastor?
Well, it hits me a couple of things. One, what if someone in our church saw me do this?
Mm-hmm.
Or number two, what if the person I'm behind is actually a member of our church?
Why would that make a difference?
Because now their pastor is being an absolute jerk.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't want that. And so, but I mean, outside of that, no, I don't really, it's not like I go around and I'm consciously well, better do this or, well, better not do that. Just because I'm a pastor, that doesn't really cross my mind much.
So you're not nice on purpose without just being generally nice to people that you interact with while you're out just because you're a pastor?
No.
Okay.
I would probably say I'm more conscious of the fact that I'm a Christian than I'm a pastor.
Okay.
So I might be more intentional to ensure that I'm being friendly to the individual that's checking me out from the store, because I want to make sure that I am noticing them and making sure that I'm not just brushing them off or ignoring them by just being on my phone or something like that. And that's because I want them to know their value. I appreciate what they're doing.
So you do that consciously, on purpose, instead of just doing it naturally.
There's times I'm doing it naturally. There's times I'll catch myself and I'll be on my phone. And I'm all right, I gotta stop this.
Okay.
I gotta make sure that I'm being attentive and intentional with this. And so, yeah. So sometimes it's natural, and sometimes it's okay, come on, Joe, you're better than this. You need to make sure that you're acting in a manner that is conveying appreciation and respect and love to people because I am a Christian.
Are there any ways, or how do you feel like you have to live that is different from the regular plebs that just go to church?
Okay. Well, I think most people that go to church are awesome, by the way, and not just regular whatever. And so, but as far as how I go about living my life, or how I feel like I have to act just because I'm a pastor, how different that is. I think, again, most of my convictions and most of my actions are more aligned with just being a Christian.
Okay.
than being a pastor. Maybe the one exception to that would be alcohol. And here's what I mean by that. Like, so drunkenness is a sin. To drink is not. But then I also, and this is a conviction I've had since I was about 20 years old, that I just simply do not drink.
Because you're in leadership.
And because I'm in leadership. So that started when I was in leadership at a campus ministry, and it's continued on. And so I have made a personal decision to not drink because I'm in leadership and because I want to make sure that if there's individuals who are around me, that they don't feel like they don't, quote unquote, I use a church word, stumble because I drink, but to put it in better words, like, all right, so give you an example. If someone's come over to our house, or let's say I'm out with someone and maybe I don't know them very well. I'm just getting to know them as a pastor. They just visited our church. I don't want to drink alcohol, not knowing if that person that's right there in front of me, maybe they had a bad, horrible experience with alcohol, whether it be through abuse or whether it be through they had to overcome their own alcoholism or their parent was an alcoholic and it kind of puts them off. So I wouldn't want to do anything that would be off-putting or upsetting to someone who comes from a background where alcohol was not used in moderation and not respected. And so that's kind of a decision I have made as someone in leadership.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's probably the only thing that I've made a huge conscious decision of. Well, it's the only thing, but it is the probably the most common thing I can think of that this is a decision I have made because I'm a pastor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone offered you a cigarette, you would definitely smoke that cigarette.
I would definitely not smoke that cigarette. Okay, so maybe there's two things now. But the cigarette thing would not really be because of pastor things, because I don't want to smoke a cigarette. I really don't want lung cancer. That's really more on that line.
Okay, so is there anything in the Bible that says that pastors are supposed to live and act differently than regular church people?
Yeah, and the way you keep phrasing regular church people, like I don't want to have this attitude of like, well, there's the regular church people, and then there's us up here, us pastors.
I'm not a pastor.
No,
I'm a regular church person.
Okay, fine. You're speaking on behalf of of the masses. All right. So,
get behind me, everyone. Let's go.
Oh, so now you're their leader. Yeah. Oh, no.
Of the regulars.
I still don't know. This is good. Okay. Back to the original question. Is there, in Scripture, are there places where it's said, hey, this is how those that are in pastoral or shepherding leadership are supposed to live and act and behave? Yes. So in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, it says, this saying is trustworthy. If anyone aspires to be an overseer, he desires a noble work. An overseer, and the word overseer there I won't go into all the Greek, but can be interchanged with elder. Okay, and shepherd, and that eventually becomes translated as pastor. An overseer, therefore, must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, self-controlled, sensible, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not an excessive drinker, not a bully but gentle, not quarrelsome, not greedy. He must manage his own household competently and have his children under control with all dignity. If anyone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he take care of God's church? He must not be a new convert, or he might become conceited and incur the same condemnation as the devil. Therefore, he must have a good reputation among outsiders, so that he does not fall into disgrace and the devil's trap. And there's a very similar listing in Titus. And so that kind of spells out, hey, these are the kind of quote unquote qualifications for those that are entering into a shepherding pastoral leadership role in the church. And so they are saying, hey, here's the standard that's being set.
So nice married dudes with children.
Well, it doesn't say you have to be married.
But it did.
It just say, oh, if you're going to be a husband, it's got to make sure it's a husband of just one wife.
But if we didn't have a wife and kids, then what household would he be managing? Does he have a dog that gets out of hand sometimes that he has to hit with a newspaper?
All right, so I hear what you're saying, and the fact that you're saying, all right, well, if he doesn't have kids, if he doesn't have a wife, how will he know how to manage a household? Mm-hmm. Right? But the Apostle Paul comes to mind.
Okay.
Paul was never married.
Yeah, but he didn't manage anything. He just sent letters.
That's actually not true. And so Paul just sent letters from prison. That's all Paul was doing.
Yeah, he was in prison.
Getting arrested all the time.
What, is he managing a cell?
Yeah, but you got to remember that Paul is...
Hank, did you flush?
Okay, but you got to remember that Paul was like, he would go to one place, like he'd be in Ephesus for like 2 years, for example.
In prison.
No, not in prison. I mean, he would be in places for a while in prison, yes, but not. But I'm using Ephesus as an example because he was actually there for a couple of years helping to establish the church.
Okay.
And so he's not married and he doesn't have kids, and yet he's helping to oversee this church because he's founding it, basically.
Okay.
And so he's helping to oversee it and get it going, and so providing the leadership for it. And so I think in cases of individuals who are single and do not have kids, that they still can be quote unquote judged by how they conduct their own life and how they are actually, like wherever they're living, whether that be with friends or by themselves or with family, the way that they are conducting their livelihood in private and in public.
So that's the point.
Yeah.
That if they're good in private.
And in public, right? Because it says they have to have a reputation that is good both to outsiders and to those within the church. And so I think that's the point of it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any situations where you feel like you have to act differently because you are a pastor?
Do I feel like I have to act differently because I'm a pastor?
Yes.
Again, I brought up the example of drinking earlier. So if I'm at a place where, let's say I'm in a restaurant with some friends and they're all drinking wine, like I will choose not to do that. Mm-hmm. But they will understand why.
Do people ever go like, "Oh, Pastor Man's not going to drink"?
That would happen like earlier on when I was younger. Okay. Yeah. But then you're around your peers who are younger and are idiots. Right. And so, when you're around a bunch of young, 20-somethings, that's kind of what you get. And, but really since then, no. I really, to be honest with you, more than likely what I end up hearing is, like, if I'm with someone and they know I'm a pastor, whether I'm their pastor or not, but they're going to order alcohol. Many times they will ask if that's okay with me.
Do you feel weird about that?
No, because I understand where they're coming from. Like, they want to make sure I feel comfortable, and so that's fine.
But why would you be uncomfortable? Why do you think they think you would be uncomfortable?
I guess because they're not sure probably of what I fully, like, my belief on that. Like, They're probably wondering, does he even think this is okay to even have a glass of wine at dinner?
Oh, okay.
And so they don't really probably know where I stand on that. and
And since you're not ordering anything,
and since I'm not ordering anything,
hint, hint, wink, wink.
right, and so
Me, pastor, you not.
yeah, but like it doesn't bother me at all. Like I have a friend, and anytime we go to like a Braves game or something, like he's going to order a beer, that's fine. And he generally will ask, make sure it's okay. But I always say yes, it's fine, and then we just kind of move on, like and so no, that doesn't bother me. But I understand why they feel uncomfortable initially, maybe. So,
do people make fun of you for stuff like that?
Nah.
No.
No. Again, it's
like, are you ever the butt of a winky wink joke
because of being a pastor?
Yeah. Let me just set this drink right here.
No, but not like in that framework, but like. Yeah, are there times are there settings where like joking's happening and those kind of things, and especially when you're with a bunch of guys and maybe they say something and they're like, oh, but the pastor's here, let's bring it down, and so there's times like that, or there's times where they'll joke about the fact the pastor's there, so they got to bring it down, and so in that sense. Yeah, they're all laughing, but it's weird because a lot of times it's just stupid stuff, and they don't like it. It generally just doesn't bother me.
So, have you ever done anything like? Well, I don't know, but have you ever done anything that like came back to bite you later because you were a pastor? Like something that wouldn't, like, if I did it, nobody would care, but since you did it, and because you're a pastor. People felt weird about it.
Yeah, I guess maybe two. Like one would be like language.
Okay.
Like so, and the language one is interesting because everyone kind of has their own line of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
This is how this podcast was started because I was wondering about language because we talk in a podcast. So.
Yeah. Right. And so and everybody has their own line of what's inappropriate, of what's appropriate language wise. And so, I've been in settings and like to kind of emphasize something, I might use the word damn or something like that. And yeah, I learned. I did that when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I learned pretty quickly. Don't do that because
where's the line now?
Because that would get reactions. I got to be sensitive to my audience, like to who I'm in front of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so
we can do it like this. I'll just start, and you tell me where it is.
This sounds really horrible. All right, but yeah, go ahead.
Crap.
Yeah, I'll say that.
Never mind. We don't have to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll just skip to the end.
Yeah. So if I'm preaching,
mm-hmm.
right? So, and I think there's different environments, right? There's the preaching environment,
right?
And then there's just I'm with people out somewhere environment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still pastoring both, but I know at one time I was using the word I would say, man, that's freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think much about that, but then I had some people that were bothered that I was using the word freaking
mm-hmm.
because then they thought that was going to influence their children
to say freaking
or maybe go a step further than that.
Okay.
And so,
which is
that's not for me to say, my friend. And
damn it.
All right. And so
poke.
I know you're poking.
Poke.
But so I think that the fact that there's those so I've said words from the the church I'm in now, like I wouldn't even want to use the word freaking because that in of itself is bothersome for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no reason for me to use a word that I know is going to be bothersome for some people.
Okay.
Yeah, even if I'm like, but if I was with my friends, I'm like, man, that's freaking awesome. Like, I wouldn't think twice about that. But in the pulpit, yeah, I'm not going to say that because I know that bothers people.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I'm mindful. I try to be mindful with language.
Have people gotten mad before because of something you said from the pulpit? Like a word?
That's really about the only word I can think of.
Which one? Freaking?
Yeah.
You said that on. You
In
said
the
that
pulpit.
on the stage and people got mad?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Really?
that's happened a few times.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's dumb.
Well, I mean, it's okay.
I think it's dumb.
Right. But people have their own. Again, they have their own lines,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because sometimes their line for themselves will be different than their line for me.
Right.
Like they would not want me to say "damn,"
Right.
but they're going to say it, right, in their environment. And so sometimes there is that double standard a little bit, and I have to go with that and go, that's okay. Like I have to realize that. And because I think a lot of times with words in and of themselves, we have to be careful. Like I would never want to use a word in such a way that would belittle somebody or degrade somebody
Okay.
or attack somebody. But like, if I was driving with my own kids the other day, and the person in front of me just slammed on their brakes just really fast.
And what did your kids say?
I slammed on our brakes. And I was like, oh shit. And I'm, and kind of do the immediate, parent move where you're putting your hand or your arm across the child next to you. And I apologize for saying a word. And, and the kids are kind of like, oh, Dad said that. And I don't think they had ever heard me say that before. And so, but that wasn't like in a that was not like an attacking way or derogatory way or right towards someone. And so, I mean, the reality is what there has been a truckload of difference. If I said, oh crap or oh dang, like where do we draw those lines?
I swear, because I love you. I didn't want to see you get hurt.
Right. No, I would not use that. That's just, no. So, and then I think the other one where people may have felt uncomfortable is I did a teaching. I've done teachings before on sex or sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
and for some people it can bother them if their pastor's talking about sex. And so, but I have to, and again, that's and a lot of times it's more of a generational thing, where sex was just not talked about in the church for a really long time. And still is not talked about in the church very often.
Well, I have to say, I remember that sermon, and you're into some pretty weird stuff.
Thanks, Nate. Nate knows not of what he speaks. But anyway, so I can keep going from this point. But I think, and those are just kind of the things. It's interesting what, again, it kind of goes back to even the language thing. It's interesting what people deem in their minds is appropriate that they want to hear from their pastor versus if someone else said it, it would be completely okay and acceptable, or at least more tolerated.
So what do you think that, what do you think that, why do they think that?
Because if I'm supposed to be a representative of God.
Okay.
So I'm the, to use a phrase, I'm quote unquote, I'm
God said damn and ass all the time in his Bible. He told him to write it.
He told him to write it. There's damn in there?
Damnation. Eternal damnation, right? That's in there?
That's in there.
It's in one of the versions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And asses are through the whole thing.
A lot of donkeys.
Yeah.
A lot of donkeys. Yeah, I did have a sermon one time, and I said Paul fell right off his ass.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. It was kind of hit and miss.
Did you say that on purpose or did you say it on accident?
It just came out. I don't
Okay.
think there was a lot of thought behind it. I understand why people, again, they're expecting their pastor to conduct themselves in a certain way, to one, be a representative of God, but to set an example for everyone else. In other words, like, it actually is like pastors are supposed to live in such a way that it should kind of inspire or convict people to want to live in such a way that will honor the Lord in their language, in their actions, but hopefully more than just the outward parts, the inside, their attitudes, their own emotions, those kind of things. And so, like, I do understand why people hold pastors to a certain level, and it's not, and that's not necessarily unbiblical.
Okay.
And
because of the verses.
Because the verses here are telling pastors to live to a certain standard. And in the same letter, Paul is writing to Timothy, and he's saying, hey, you need to, or in 2 Timothy, excuse me, you need to live in such a way that sets an example to all of those around you. And so an example in your life, and in your ministry, in your knowledge, so pastors are called to live in such a way, again, that should hopefully inspire people to say, hey, this is what it's modeled, to look like, to follow the Lord, and so I understand why people have those expectations, and most of the time I don't think they are unreasonable.
Okay. So are there places you won't go because you're a pastor?
Places I won't go? No. I mean, there's places I won't go because I'm a Christian.
Like what? Strip
clubs.
What if it was Christian night at the strip club?
Nope. Yeah, no. I mean, obviously there'd be certain places I just wouldn't want to go. But again, that's more of like just, again, being a Christian.
If Kiss came to town and a bunch of people from church were going to see Kiss, would you go see Kiss?
Would I go see Kiss?
Yeah.
I would not go see Kiss, but not because of their antics or anything. I'm just not a fan of their music.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what if it was exactly Kiss, but you liked their music?
I think if I knew there was going to be something that was just going to be overly and overtly, sexual and hedonistic, then I probably would stay away from that.
Marilyn Manson came to town.
Not going.
Okay.
Not going. But, a lot of times people ask me, would you go, would you go to a bar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
That doesn't bother me.
Like a pure bar. Not like, hey, we have a restaurant too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, when I was living in Athens, as a college student, we went to bars quite a bit to listen to bands. Mm-hmm. And that never bothered me.
Okay.
Now, I think it probably bothered others that I would go there.
Okay.
But that's not...
Because you were crossing their line.
I was crossing their line.
Okay.
But I can't live up to everyone else's lines.
Right.
Like, I felt okay. Like, I would go at times with people who I knew they were going to go one way or the other, with or without me. They're going. Mm-hmm. So I would go and actually be like their designated driver on the way home.
Okay.
And because if they're going, and I actually, and I want them to be okay. Mm-hmm. I would rather say, hey, if you're going anyway, nothing I can do is, going to dissuade you, then let me at least drive you home, so that I can make sure they get home safe. So, yeah, so those, like, and I would say that I guess I've had someone that was bothered that I would even bring up examples, especially when I was younger and had just come out of Athens and I was working with youth and would share with them those kind of things. There would be people who would get upset with me a little bit.
That you were going to bars
Or-
on the weekend and then hanging out with their kids during the week?
No, because I wasn't going to bars in the weekend at that point.
Okay.
This is more like after. This is more like it's like after college. I'm working in a church and doing a lot with the youth, and people just being a little upset that I would tell those even like stories of examples of, hey, I used to go to a bar to listen to music, and there were times we would go to bars just to share Christ and evangelize and that kind of thing, but most often it was really just to go listen to music.
Do you avoid dangerous activities such as skydiving or bungee jumping or those types of things because you are a pastor?
No.
So putting your life in danger doesn't
like
make anybody mad.
No, so like more of my filter
Or look like you don't care about yourself.
Right. No, I don't know. Like, so when I'm in, like, so for example, when I'm in Guatemala, they have this really cool waterfall that you can actually jump off the top of into a spring that's below it, and so I do that. I don't. It's cool. It's fun, right? We're gonna climb up side of this, and it's got like a little trail and stuff. We're gonna climb up this waterfall, get to the top of it, and kind of take a running jump, clear enough, get out there enough, and go crashing into the spring. And I'm fine with that. Really, more of it is for me. I don't think about it as much as like as a pastor. It's more like as a dad.
Okay.
Like, all right, Joseph, don't do something stupid here that may cause your kids to no longer have a father.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what runs across my mind, much more so than don't do something stupid here, the church won't have a pastor.
So when you watch movies or listen to music that isn't the Christianiest of Christian films or music, do you get like afraid that someone's going to see or hear you doing that and judge you for it?
There's times. So like I'm a huge classic rock fan.
Mm-hmm.
Love classic rock.
Mozart, Beethoven.
Right. And Mozart, Beethoven, Jimmy. I mean, it's all the same.
Jimmy. Monet.
Yeah, Jim Morrison. They're all the same, right? And so, but I love classic rock and I love alternative and grunge music from the 90s.
Right.
And so I love those two genres of music. And do I believe there'd be people that would probably take issue with that? Maybe.
Okay.
And I know
because you're a pastor, or simply because they think your tastes in music are stupid.
Well, if they think my taste in music is stupid, I would know their taste in music is stupid. So, because it's just the best music. But anyway,
right.
No, but I mean, no, it has been surprise. I have told people, because they'll ask, like, what's your favorite bands? What's your favorite music? And I just start listing all these bands that I listen to in classic rock and from 90s alternative and grunge, and it takes them aback sometimes that I listen to that music, although oftentimes they listen to that music as well. I think they just find it a little shocking that their pastor is listening to that music.
Okay.
And listen, and there's some stuff that obviously I would not promote and, that I would not encourage people to listen to. But like my kids, like every road trip, we go to Valdosta, I'm pretty much listening to that music for 3 hours on the way down there. And my kids are exposed to it. They know that's the kind of music dad likes. And so, because I just like the sound of it, like the musicality of it. And so, yeah, I think there would probably be some people that would be a little bothered that I listen to that music, but not much I can do about that.
What about movies? Like, if there's a sex joke in a movie and you laugh at it, do you feel bad?
That depends on how far that sex joke is.
Okay.
Yeah. My wife and I were we were watching Parks and Rec last week. Yeah, and some sex joke was made in it, and we both just died laughing. And so I'm not sure what that says about me at this point. But because here's the thing about sex, especially when it's in the context of sex is not this dirty, awful thing. And this is, I know, a whole nother different episode, so I will not go on some long tangent about it. But just
it's kind of gross a little.
I mean, sex in marriage is awesome, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's a gift from God. God actually is the one who created sex. It is actually a holy act, and so that's the way I view it. And so, therefore, when they make some joke about sex or whatever, and it's in the context of marriage, that's like, there's actually nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never thought about it like that.
Because sex is, again, it's a gift from God. It's holy and it's good. And I think we don't talk about this enough. So therefore, people create their own ideas of their views of what church and what pastors must think about sex. And
what are you supposed to think about sex?
Oh, like as a pastor, for most people,
yeah.
Most people are like, well, they just the church or pastors
you just don't have sex,
I guess, or they just don't want you to talk about it,
right?
Which I think is the worst thing in the world, because I do think we should talk about it because it is holy, and in the context of marriage, it's holy, and so therefore we should be able to speak about it, talk about it, and even laugh about it. I mean, and so I think there's all these things that should happen in the course of our conversations in regards to sex. But yeah, I think most people are just, and I think probably they're just like, I don't want to think about my pastor having sex. Like, that, don't want to go there.
I mean, most people don't want to think about
other people having sex.
Other people they know having sex anyway.
Exactly. And so, then I guess they just think our children just magically appear or something. I'm not sure.
You're gross.
Thank you.
That's what I think.
You're welcome.
Like, how often do you have to decline things like stuff that you think is crossing your line? Like, how often do people offer you drinks that you have to say no to? I
mean, I don't think that just, it does happen when people offer me a drink, and I say no, but it doesn't happen very often. But has it happened probably a few times in the last year? Yeah.
Are there times where you ask people to stop doing what they're doing because it's crossing your line and they're around them?
Yep.
Like what?
All right. So I was actually at an event just a couple of weeks ago. I was with some people. They were younger people, not Christians, and basically they were just objectifying some guys, and they were just sexually objectifying every girl that was around them.
Okay.
And was like, we're vocally talking about it.
Like with you
with there. Me right there present with them.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just had to look at them and say, hey guys, let's just cut that out.
So do you feel like when people apologize for doing things around you, like, oops, I swore, or can I have a drink near you? Do you think when they're doing that, it's because you do stuff like what you did to those people? Where you're the one that's willing to say, hey, I don't want to sit here and listen to you do this?
No, I think they apologize because, like, let's say they cuss around me. And they apologize for that because I think they just believe they shouldn't do that around a pastor. I don't think it has as much to do with what I will do in return.
Okay.
Or they don't want me to think of them differently or think of them in a lesser light, which it would not cause me to think of them in a lesser light.
So I guess I'm thinking like if I was one of the people sexually objectifying women and you said to me, hey, could you cut that out?
Mm-hmm.
My brain would be like, okay, what else am I doing that he's going to be telling me not to do?
Right.
So do you feel like that might be going through people's mind?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I can definitely see where that would be going through people's minds.
Okay.
Now, the flip side for me with this group of people I was with was that at a latter time, I'll have the opportunity to let them know why I said that.
Okay.
In the moment, I didn't have time to elaborate.
Okay.
But in a latter time, I will. And so they'll understand why I asked them that. And it's not just because I'm a prudish pastor.
Okay.
Yeah. It's because I want to teach them to value people.
So why should I not think that you're a prudist pastor in that instance if you had or another pastor had ever done that to me?
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that that's what you would think.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely get that.
Okay.
But I want them to know. But that's why I feel like it's important for me to talk to them about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's like when your kids do something and you tell them to stop it.
Were they all younger?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're younger than me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so when my kids do something, and I tell them to stop it. I need to give them a further explanation of why I'm asking them to stop something. And because I don't want them to think, well, Dad just told me to stop, and so therefore I'll stop. Like, I want them to understand it. And the same thing with this situation. Like, I want them to understand the reason I asked them to stop is because I don't want them to sexually objectify women. I want them to learn to see them and value them as creations of God.
Okay.
So, but again, in the context we were in, it wasn't the time or the place for me to, have a 5 to 10 minute conversation with them about it.
Mm-hmm. So say you were out at a bar smoking and listening to sexy, sweary music and watching sexy, sweary, bloody movies all at the same time. Who would you be more afraid of finding out? Other church leaders or your church members?
Okay, so first of all, I wouldn't be sitting there doing that.
But say that's the situation. Would you be more afraid of...
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, the people that I'm shepherding.
Okay.
Yeah, our own church.
Why?
Because they're the ones that I'm ultimately held accountable to and are called to set an example for.
Okay.
Yeah, for the other pastor out there, they may not like it, but if I'm not directly involved in their lives, then it doesn't carry near as much weight or could have near as much impact as it would to the people in our own congregation.
But those pastors could go tell everybody else and you could be that horrible pastor for all the rest of eternity.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to just be so whatever about it, but yeah, oh, well.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do want to clarify something because I want to make sure it's not just living out there. In some, what does Joseph watch? Like, my wife and I are much more particular about shows that we watch, movies we watch.
Then what?
Then like maybe, I don't know, maybe a lot of people or some people, I don't know.
Oh, okay, that's what you mean.
Yeah, so like, in other words, the movies we watch, like we're not going to watch a movie if it's just got like cussing all the way through it.
Okay.
They're just cussing. Like, no, I'll stop it. Or if it's just constant like sexual innuendos and those kind of things, no, we got to move past this. Or if there's just blatant sex scenes in it, no, I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. And so we're much more mindful and careful with that. So I know, because I know some people will be like, well, but you listen to this kind of music, and that's true. I do listen to 90s music and and classic rock. But there's even some songs I just won't listen to because of the lyrics. But especially like for movies, you know, we're. I mean, again, I mentioned earlier, like we watch Parks and Rec, we watch The Office, you know. So I'm not sitting here saying we only watch shows that are fully quote unquote wholesome and blameless. And so we're okay with that. Like that's our conviction. Like we're good. But I know other people wouldn't watch those shows, and that's okay. But you know we do. That's fine. We're okay with that. But at the same time, we're not going to sit there and just expose ourselves, watch something where it's just constant language or sexual innuendos or sex scenes. We're not interested in watching that kind of stuff.
But blood and gore, that's all cool.
We definitely have a higher tolerance for violence. But I feel like as Americans, that's just more.
It's true though.
Yeah, it is true.
The rest of the world doesn't share our sentiment
at all.
Nope.
Like they'll have, you know, you go to Europe, you'll have, you know, completely exposed breast
in commercials.
Right.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Nope.
But don't even
stab anyone.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so we do as a country, as a culture, have a very high tolerance for violence compared to the rest of the world.
Sometimes I feel like they're right.
Why so?
The rest of the world's right.
Why so?
Because you're supposed to have sex. You're not supposed to stab anyone.
That's true.
That's why I feel like
I got you.
They might be right.
Well, I feel like probably both parties are right. I feel like we probably shouldn't be watching stuff that's just overly sexualized. Right. And we probably shouldn't be watching stuff that's just overly gory.
Mm-hmm. But the third world countries you go to, there's just people that walk around naked, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, when I'm doing ministry, yeah, I mean, it's funny, even in we had a mission team prep meeting last night, and we were going over culture and cultural expectations and things to expect to see, trying to prepare people for what they're going to encounter. And we were like, hey, listen, in some of these villages, it's not going to be abnormal for you to see, you know, women who are topless, women who are exposing themselves, you know, breastfeeding, like they're not throwing a shawl over them and the baby, you know? And so, yeah, there's, you do have to, I do have to prepare our team for what they're going into, because it can be a little jarring walking into a ministering into a village where they don't think as much a big a deal about it as we would here.
Wear 2 pairs of underwear, kids.
Yes.
Well, I think that's enough of these invasive questions for today. I think so, Joseph.
Yeah, it's definitely enough.
Well, there's going to be a whole lot more next time, and possibly even more the time after that. Stay tuned.
Well, all right.
Well, this has been the When I Heard This podcast. You can find the podcast everywhere that there's podcasts and on YouTube and Rumble. You can follow updates on the podcast at When I Heard This podcast. Go to Patreon, $5. Click all the buttons around the things, like, subscribe, download, all the other ones. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Nate Robinsoff, and you can follow Joseph on Instagram at
RevJoeT.
This has been the When I Heard This podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.